Welcome to this week's episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Grab a seat at the table as Masters rowing coaches Marlene Royal and Rebecca Caro share their biggest secrets on how to unleash your hidden potential and plot a new course for real results on the water and off. Now, on to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. I'm Rebecca Caro, and today I'm delighted to announce that we're still working on speed murdering mistakes. Why do I choose this as a topic? Well, the main reason is that it's super easy to correct these, and it takes no extra fitness and no extra effort. And that's so important for us masters because we're not as strong as younger rowers. And more importantly, we want to enjoy our rowing, and boat speed, and particularly speed for free, has to be something that delivers for us. Now, I've done 2 previous episodes about speed murdering mistakes. The first one was dragging your oars along the surface of the water. The second one was about sequencing off the finish and getting speed for free. And the third one today is mistiming the catch. By that, I mean putting the oar in the water at the wrong moment compared with how your body is moving, specifically moving up the slide. When you row and we roll forwards to full compression, there's a microsecond where our seat is stationary, and then it changes direction and starts rolling in the opposite direction back towards getting your legs straight and towards the bow of the boat. So when your seat is closest to the stern, that is the moment where you want to have your oars already under the water. This is not easy. So the ideal timing is to have your oars under the water when you're at full compression and your seat has stopped moving. If you're a little bit too early and you put your oars in the water before you get to full compression, what happens is you're missing the opportunity to use all of your leg drive, because generally speaking, the distance between your seat and your heels is a little bit too wide. And you want to get to an optimum point where you are comfortable and your seat has arrived closest to your heels before it changes direction. So you're losing the opportunity to use a little bit of leg drive if you're too early. If you're too late, there are a couple of things that happen. Obviously, you're not at full slide because, again, you've moved away from that full compression moment. Secondly, you're again wasting leg drive because what's been happening is that your legs are pushing, but your oars aren't under the water. So you're effectively pushing air rather than pushing water. And thirdly, the bows of the boat are not at their highest. You might remember me talking last time about how longitudinally down the boat, the bow and stern tip up and down during the rowing stroke. This is because your weight, your body mass, is moving. Hence, the slide. We know about rowing and rolling up the slide. When you roll towards the catch, your body mass is going towards the stern, and as a result, the bows rise. Now, when the bows are at their high point, that's usually when you are at the end of your slide. You've stopped rolling towards the stern. Those 2 things are concurrent because one is dependent on the other. Generally speaking, that's the moment when you want to put the oars in the water, placing as the bows are at their highest point. So if you're too early, your bows haven't yet risen to the high point. If you're a little bit too late in placing the catch, your bows have already started to fall. So those are the sort of symptoms of mistiming the catch. Now let's move on to the cure. Curiously, and this often happens in rowing, but curiously, the cure starts at the finish. So it starts at the opposite end of the stroke cycle from the thing you're trying to fix. And that is often the case Why? Because we are doing a repetitive cyclical movement. Often what happens at one point depends on the setup earlier in the stroke cycle. So one of the reasons I chose the finish as the second speed murdering mistake is because that is what sets you up for the catch. And if you're mistiming the catch, the chances are part of the cure may be at the finish. So ideally, the catch is a very, very short period of time. And so ideally, you need to be prepared early and ready for it. It is a fraction of a second when your seat changes direction. So by preparing early for the catch, that means two things. Firstly, you need to be squared, your oars need to be square before you get to the change of direction on the slide. Secondly, you need to have as few body movements as possible as you're going up the slide. This gives you less to do when you're actually trying to place the oar into the water. If all you have to do is lift the handles, that's only one thing. If you also have to lean forward, straighten your arms, roll the blade square, that's 3 additional things. And you don't really want to be doing them all at once because the boat is at its least stable as you're rolling towards the catch, and any instability will generally compromise your catch timing because you don't know whether you're at full slide. If your oars are rolling along the water, you can't get them square. I don't think I need to explain that any further. And so having the third thing, which is loose legs on the recovery, this helps you to be poised, but also to feel quite in control. You don't need to do a lot of effort to drag yourself forwards using your hamstrings at low rates. You can let the momentum of the boat hull be the thing that quietly pushes you up the slide. It doesn't work all the time, but it means that you are doing less. And that's part of the principle. Now, let's go back to the sequence off the back, which you'll recall from last week. Remember what I talked about getting your arms straight before your body rocks forwards, before you start to bend your knees. That triple sequence of body movements is really useful. Why? Firstly, by the time you get to the catch, your arms are fully extended. By the time you're at half slide, your body is leaning forwards in the catch position. And it doesn't, neither of those things need to change at all between that half slide position and the moment when you place the blades into the water. And so once you've got to half slide, all you have to do then is square the blades and then choose your moment for lifting the handles and putting them in the water. A couple of things might help you. So one of the things that happens, particularly when people are beginning rowing or sculling, is they misunderstand the recovery and the catch. They think that you need to roll fully forwards to full compression before you roll the blades square. But if you do that, you will definitely be too late on the placement. So that squaring the blade movement needs to be at a different part of the recovery. So how can you pull all these things together and get your catch timing better aligned with the moment that you arrive at full compression? There are a couple of things that I can suggest. The first is to look at your knees. When you're rolling forwards, basically your knees rise gradually as you compress and roll up the slide. When you get to full compression, your knees are at their highest, and then you start to drive with your legs and your knees again start to fall as your legs straighten. So look at your knees and see when they're at their highest and see if you can put your oar in the water just before your knees are at their highest. The reason I say just before is it takes a little bit of time for your oar to go from being above the water to being under the water. So you need to start the movement before your knees are at their highest, which is very much like that novice mistake of assuming that squaring and changing direction are done at the same time. The second thing you can look for or listen for is a moment of silence on your seat wheels. When your wheels are moving, you can hear them rolling. It's easier to do in a single scull when there's not the sound of other people around you, but you can actually hear them, and you may even be able to feel them slightly. When your seat changes direction, there's a moment of silence. And if you can hear when that silence is, that gives you an identical timing point off of your knees, off of full slide, to change direction. And that changing direction, of course, is when you want the oars to already be under the water. The third tip I have is to be active with your placement. By that, I mean lifting your handles with a definite movement, lifting them up in order to put the oars under the water. There is a school of thought that you should just let gravity do its work. But to be honest, gravity works when you're not holding the handle. If you let go, yes, the oar will just drop, and it'll drop at 10 meters per second, which is, gravity in the Earth's atmosphere. But we don't let go of our handles. And so, generally speaking, this leads to a slow placement. What I'm talking about here is making an active movement so that your handle is being pushed by your hands, sometimes by your thumbs. If you're in sweep, you can practice this by putting your thumbs at 90 degrees along the oar handle, so they're actually pushing on the handle itself and pushing them away and up so that the handle moves away from you on a kind of diagonal line upwards so that the oar goes under the water. For sculling, you can do the same thing. You can also straighten your thumbs, or you can just put your thumbs slightly underneath the ends instead of being right on the ends of the sculls, slightly underneath. And again, use that as a sort of upward lift, and you can sort of pull up with your fingertips. But that's a little bit more hard to feel. So trying to be very active with that placement will also help you to make sure that the blade definitely does lift, the handle definitely does lift, and the oar spoon definitely does go under the water at the moment that you intend. And as I said at the beginning, the joy of these speed murdering mistakes is that they require you to refine your technique, to finesse your movements. They don't need you to be stronger or fitter or to work harder in order to make them happen. That's why I feel they're really open for everybody. Anyone can do these and can make them work. So please get down to the water, go have a try for yourself, and see if you can string those three together and really make a difference to your boat speed. Till next time.
We are part of the Rowing Chat Podcast Network. Please tell your rowing friends about the show. And if you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.